Now we're going to move on to our second speaker. We are honored to have you with us today, Naema Wajeeh Aldaqsha. She's a postgraduate teaching associate and PhD researcher at the European Center for Palestine Studies at the University of Exeter. Her research focuses on representation, diplomacy, and political leadership in Palestine. Naema completed her MA in International Relations and Politics in Richmond, here at the American International University. She holds a BA in English Linguistics and Literature from Aqsa University in Gaza, of course, demolished. With a robust background in both academia and practical experience, Naema has been working to contribute to the field of Palestinian studies. Her most recent works include an article on the pro-Palestinian university encampments and a novella exploring historic Palestine. She also accumulated valuable experience as an activist and translator in Gaza, further enriching her understanding of the socio-political dynamics in the State of Palestine. It goes without saying we're honored to have you with us today. From a family that's paying the price. Her youngest brother was killed in a military attack last November. They know what displacement is. They know what abandonment means. They know what suffering and pain means in a level beyond all of us. Naema has not been feeling the greatest. We're really, again, honored to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you. What time am we expected to start?
We've got 30 minutes, at 12, and our show.
10 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Can I get anything?
No, all is well, yeah, thank you so much. I'm sorry for not starting fast, and thank you very much for a very interesting speech. It's well detailed, and it's just to the Palestinians and to humanity as well. I tried to share my slides, but unfortunately, I don't know for what reason they couldn't open. And so I'm going to talk about, dig deeper a bit into the history of the Palestinian political programs, and I'll be talking about the legality and legitimacy of the creation of Israel, levels of consciousness of the Palestinians. Sorry, I'm a bit sick. I'm really sorry for this. And things the Palestinians can address and compromise over, and other things that they cannot compromise, and possible political programs, as well as the reintegration of the Israeli-Palestinian communities. Like having people like Jeff and other Palestinians who meet anti-Zionist Israelis on a different footing will very much help us in the future to reintegrate the Palestinians along with the anti-Zionist Israelis after the liberation of Palestine. I'm really sorry, I'm a bit sick. Yeah, thank you. Zionism, to begin with, was not born in Palestine. It did not emerge as an outcome of any Palestinian faults. It was not even born in Palestine. It was born in Europe, and it was an outcome of European political oppression and social problems like anti-Semitism and so on and so forth. And what the Palestinians are responsible for at the moment, and since the start of the settler colonialist project in Palestine, is the liberation of Palestine from the river to the sea. And the liberation of Palestine from the river to the sea is not something that is against any laws or against any human beings. It's something that will bring back the full meaning of human rights for the Palestinians. The other thing that the Palestinians are responsible for is getting the right of return, which is a very basic right, and it's always on the top of the menu of the Palestinian rights. As well as fighting against normalization, because normalization, as Jeff always mentions, is a very, one of the most, if not the most dangerous kind of weapons that the Israelis have been using against the Palestinians. And then to contribute, the Palestinians are also responsible for contributing for the liberation of the rest of the failed states surrounding Palestine, that includes Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt, and other states. They are failed because they have puppets leading them, and these puppets are the ones that help and support the continuation of the settler colonist project in Palestine. In addition to that, oppression against their own people, and so on and so forth. And then, while we don't have a political program as Palestinians at the moment, it's for different reasons. So I'm just going to get back into history. When Israel was first created, it was an outcome of the direct colonization. And there is two main forms of colonization in history. Sorry. The direct form of colonization is known as the French style of colonization, which is mainly about the direct attack against the indigenous people, and massive killings, and the physical existence of the settler colonialist powers, or the colonialist powers in general, in the area where they want to colonize the state or the community or whatever. The indirect form of colonization is also known as the British style of colonization, and it's mainly about creating a political elite, or making a deal with the political elite of the community or the country to implement the political agenda of the settler colonialist powers and get individual privileges in return from the settler colonialist powers. And these two things have been practiced by the Israelis against the Palestinians. So I've got some documents that show this, but I can't show them to you because of the slides, but it's okay. So for the direct, everybody knows about the very horrific kind of incidents that have been happening since 1947, as soon as the partition resolution was issued by the United Nations, which is also kind of a colonialist organization. It was created soon after a world war, where many of the current states in the world did not exist, and many of them were still colonies. So how would you have a just United Nations or a just organization that is fair to every single country in the world, while it was created in a moment where there were superpowers, which is the global north, and there were countries that were still under settler colonialism and under colonialism. And in 1967, when the Israelis, it was a very young state, it was a very young settler colonialist state that was created, it was only 19 years old, and it managed to control over Gaza and the West Bank, which is the rest of Palestine. And they were like, oh, this is a big piece of cake, what shall we do with this? And they got a lot of political advice from the West, and there are so many secret letters, mainly one from Stoltenberg, who was the Norwegian Minister of Foreign Affairs. He says, literally, Israel will never prosper and succeed unless it gets rid of the heavy burden of the people of Gaza and the West Bank. In other words, Israel needs to start to get into the stage of implementing the indirect colonization of Palestine, which is mainly about creating or dealing or making an agreement with the political elite of the Palestinians and make them implement the Israeli political agenda in Palestine. And this is happening by the Palestinian Authority, and it's been happening since the creation of the Palestinian Authority, which is the tool of the indirect colonization of Palestine. Sorry. So in order to implement that process of indirect colonization of Palestine, so many assassinations took place. If any of the Palestinians was against that process, they were called terrorists, as Jeff discussed about the point, or the term, or the accusation of being terrorist, and then they were killed. And then they ended up having the Oslo Accords, which led to the creation of the Palestinian Authority. One of the people who were killed was Dr. Sartawi, who was the representative of the PLO, who went to Norway to talk to the Israeli counterparts, and because he said there are things that cannot be compromised, and we are Palestinians, we are the people of the land, we are indigenous people to the land, and we cannot sell out. He was killed the next day, and Rabin gave us talk about this, and he said that Dr. Sartawi went against the current, and this is why he was killed, and this is going to be the fate of every Palestinian who goes against the current. So this is how, in addition to this, in that process, they have to sign up into the political agenda of the Israelis, theoretically and practically, and this is why the PLO, which had the one-state solution suggestion in the 70s, ended up accepting the two-state solution. And then we have the PFLP, who, believed that the Palestinian problem is not only a Palestinian problem, it's an imperialist thing, and everybody has to fight, every single human who is against imperialism has to fight against the settler colonist project in Palestine, because it's a fight between the imperialist and the non-imperialist. And they believed that they have to get rid of the reactionary regimes before the getting rid of Israel, because these regimes surrounding Palestine are one of the strongest weapons in the hands of the Israelis. And, step by step, every single political party in Palestine ended up signing up for what's called the two-state solution, which is, again, as Jeff mentioned, it's a dead solution, and it's a racist one. It doesn't get, so my grandparents come from Haifa and Hamana, and I want a solution, if we can call it solution, that takes me back there, because it's my very basic right. If there is no if any of the political solutions does not take me back to Haifa, to my grandparents' house, I don't accept it as a Palestinian. It's simple. And, sorry. So all of the political parties ended up signing up for the two-state solution, including Hamas. That happened in 2005 when Hania sent a letter to the Americans stating that he is okay, or Hamas as a political movement is okay with the two-state solution. What led to this is the legitimacy, the Israeli complex of legitimacy. So Israel has been legal as soon as it was created, but it will never ever be legitimate, because if you are legal, it means you are accepted by international law, and you are accepted as a UN member, and so on and so forth. But if you are legitimate, you have to be abided by a set of very basic principles. But Israel is not based on any of these. Israel is based on a genocide. Israel is based on the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. It will never be legitimate. And because of that complex of legitimacy, they started to, since they created their own state, they started to reflect that complex on the Palestinians, to project on the Palestinian people and Palestinian politicians by making them illegal. So, State of Palestine is illegal because it's not a state that is fully recognized by all states around the world. Who does not recognize Palestine as a state? The pro-colonialist and the colonialist, settler colonialist states, starting with the United States of America. So this problem has been projected on the Palestinians, and because we want to get accepted by the international community, we want, not me, but some politicians who lack consistency, who are not consistent in their visions, they want to be accepted in international conferences. They want to be accepted by international legality. So they started to say, oh, we accept international legality, and hence we accept Israel as a state, and as a result of this, we accept the two-state solution. It started with Yasser Arafat in different conferences and different talks, because the PLO was isolated. This is why they started to accept the two-state solution. So my point here is not having a very clear Palestinian political program is mainly triggered by the settler colonialist project in Palestine. And the first, just before the end of the Cold War, Bassam Abu Sharif wrote an article about the two-state solution, and that was, that attracted the attention of every single person interested in Palestinian politics around the world. And when he was asked, why did you write this article, and why did you suggest such a political program? He said, it was just because we as Palestinians were afraid of not having the Palestinian file, the Israel-Palestine file discussed during the conferences that took place by the end of the Cold War. This is why we don't have a political program. But when it comes to many Palestinians, they believe in the fact that Palestine has to be liberated from the river to the sea. And this is triggered by the level of consciousness, the collective level of consciousness that the Palestinians have reached. So we have different levels of consciousness. I'm going to talk about a bit of psychology, but it's very much related to our politics. We have four main levels of consciousness. The first one is passive consciousness, when a person is, under oppression and they don't say anything. They don't ask, why am I going through this? They don't resist, they don't revolt, they don't do anything. And then after the passive consciousness, we have critical consciousness, where a person starts to question, why is that happening? Why am I experiencing this? And then after they start to understand why and how and when, they start to reach the higher level of consciousness, which is called resistance consciousness. Resistance consciousness is the level of consciousness when you start to take action against your oppressor, against your killer. So many Palestinians have reached, if not all of them, that level of consciousness and way beyond. And what happened just a few days ago tells what level of consciousness we have and what has been happening for, since for so long. I'm not going to give dates, but you know what I'm talking about. Indicates the fact that we have reached the highest level of consciousness, which is called revolutionary consciousness. When you are ready to take action and not wait for your oppressor to inflict more and more pain on you and then respond to their oppression. So the difference between resistance consciousness and revolutionary consciousness is that when you have a resistance consciousness, you only resist when you are under direct oppression, when you literally get hit. But revolutionary consciousness is when you decide to take action to regain your rights and to take action to regain the rights of other people around you. And resistance in Gaza, resistance movements in Gaza have proven how much they care about surrounding the people of the failed states surrounding Palestine. And this tells how revolutionary they are. So a person with that level of consciousness is conscious of what they want and what they don't want. They're not happy to compromise over things that they don't need to compromise. And they speak from a position of power even, despite the fact that we are still under colonization, and like worse crimes are being committed against us. But still, we know what we want. We want justice, we want equality, we want freedom, we want a full menu of human rights as Palestinians, and we need to put this into a political program in order to be able to address the world and tell them what we know and tell them what we have, like as Palestinians. And and in that process of reaching the level of putting the political program into practice and showing the world that we want to do this, we have this, we need to rehumanize our oppressor. Because at the end of the day, we have to deal with our oppressor, and we can't deal with them, like based on their principles of injustice, of oppression, of inequality. They don't see us as humans. They literally called us human animals. So Edward Said talks about this process of rehumanization. He says, for the oppressed is dehumanized, of course. You need to first, in order to oppress someone, you need to first believe that they're not humans, otherwise you will not have the courage to kill them in this brutal way. So first, you need to rehumanize yourself as an oppressed, and it's your responsibility as an oppressed person to rehumanize your oppressor as well, because human traits are taken away from your oppressor, and this is what led them to committing these crimes, what led them to stealing your land. So the rehumanization process means or indicates, according to Said, resisting. Like if your oppressor slaps you, you have to slap them back and make them feel the pain that you felt in order to make them start to think and believe that you are a human being just like them, and what hurts them hurts you, and then they start to believe that you're a human, and at this level they regain their human traits, empathy, sympathy, justice, and so on and so forth. And then, when you reach that level of consciousness, you start to reach a point where you can have a discussion with your oppressor, and this discussion can be based on equality, justice, and freedom. If it's not based on this, then it's normalization. I don't want to normalize with my oppressor. I have to teach them the lesson first, which they will learn, hopefully, and then start dealing with them. If I don't have a very kind of a clean ground for my political discussion with my oppressor, I will not be able to reach or put my political program into practice. How much time do I have?
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. Okay, so, what we can't compromise, as I mentioned several times now, is justice, the fact that we are the indigenous people to the land, and the fact that I want to go back to my grandparents' home. Netanyahu's house is owned by a Palestinian doctor, and the family is still alive, and they have the right to get that home back. It's a very basic right for them. It's a home that they built and have been living in for centuries, the whole family, and they have the right to get back there. And possible political programs, I should have spoken about this before because there isn't much time for it. So we have the two-state solution, which is a racist solution. It doesn't guarantee my right of return. It doesn't guarantee my right of movement. Even if I have the right to return, I will not be able to move between where I grew up in Gaza and where my grandparents were displaced from. And the other solution, there are so many other solutions suggested by so many Israelis and Palestinians, like the Confederation, which was suggested 2 years ago by Sam Bahour and another Israeli friend, I can't remember. One Land for All. So many political programs, but what we see, the ground has to be the grounds have to be based on equality, justice, freedom, and the Palestinians can address the fact that there will be colonial legacy after the end of colonization. And because we don't want to have another historical kind of a tragedy, we are happy as Palestinians to endorse the people, the Israelis, the anti-colonialist Israelis, the anti-imperialist Israelis, the anti-Zionist Israelis, after the liberation of Palestine. We're happy to include them into the Palestinian community, because these people, the problem with Israel is that its people now do not have a country to get back to. For the French colonization, they had to go back to France, and so many other stories of colonization. But throughout history, this did not happen with other states. This is why we have to address that fact, we have to strongly address it, otherwise we will have another political problem, historical problem, and things we cannot compromise or can. I think, the reintegration, so many points that I can't cover, but it's okay. People who have been, like Palestinians and Israelis who have been dealing with each other on different footing are the ones who will be able to reintegrate. The reintegration, disarmament, demobilization, and reintegration process is a United Nations program that took place, it was a post-war program. It's a United Nations one, and when it was implemented in South Africa, it was a racist one. It was not based on equality, justice, and freedom. This is why the Palestinians, along with the anti-settler colonialist Israelis, are the ones that need to lead this. International intervention means if the world remains as it looks like now, it means the continuation of problems in Palestine. And is it over? Sorry. So I think there are things that can be discussed, but it will take a lot of time. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope it was kind of interesting or whatever to you. Thank you.
Many of